Yeah, I don't have a terribly long opening statement. I want to reiterate what I said, outside, and that is I couldn't be more excited, not to just be back in college coaching, but to be at a special place like Charleston. I can't tell you the amount of people that I'm close to, that I'm acquaintances with, that have either sent me a text, called my wife and said what a special place Charleston is, but what a special place the college basketball program is and has been for a long time. So tremendous responsibility. I'm excited. I would say I'm ready to get to work, but I've been working here for the last 3 days, sort of undercover. Here we go. Here we go.
Dan with the NBC station here in town.
Hey, Dan.
Going off the people that you know, obviously Pat Kelsey, how much did you take his brain about this opportunity?
Well, obviously Pat had a lot going on at the same time, and so we shared both experiences back and forth. And so for me, it was really important about the people. And I can't tell you how many check boxes in regards to that. But Pat was an advocate of mine. I think he had some really good things to say to Matt, but also he was selling the job. He said, Chris, it's an incredible place to raise a family. It's a great community. They care about basketball. And so Pat was one of many that I talked to, and it's been great so far.
Was he trying to sell you on his house as well?
The house, it didn't get brought up. Like, listen, I don't mind stepping into the offices of Pat Kelsey. I'm not stepping into the house of Pat Kelsey. We'll find our own place.
What can fans expect out of a Chris Mack coach team?
I think a competitive team, a team that, when I say that, obviously we're all competitive, but I think when we have our teams rolling at a high level, every possession is competitive. Every possession is nasty. We want to be a team that other teams don't want to play. A team that, like, when the chips are down, we don't fold. We continue to play. And so, I think when we look in terms of recruiting, whether it's a high school kid, whether it's a transfer, we want guys that first and foremost are competitors. And so, from a defensive and offensive standpoint, offensively, I don't care if we play fast. I don't care if we have to walk the ball up in certain occasions. I want foul shots. I want layups. I want open threes. First 5 seconds or last 5 seconds of the shot clock, it doesn't matter to me. It's our job to put our players in that position. Defensively, we're primarily man-to-man. We're a team that has a lot of the same terminology that Pat, got from me when we played, and I got from Sean when we coached together. But we also like to mix in a little bit more zone, unorthodox zone, to throw teams off and give them one more thing to prepare for.
Hey, Dr. Scott Eisberg from Channel 4 here in Charleston. How daunting is it looking at the roster and the guys that are in the portal, or is that just like a clean slate for you to take advantage of?
It's daunting. And that's one of the things that I think you're faced with in 2024. It's just the challenge of putting together a roster that, one, you feel like will be ultra competitive. Two, that you know enough about the personalities behind the stats. So many guys are going into the portal left and right that it's hard. You got to really, really be careful and conscious of who you're bringing into your program. We're not the only school in that boat, though, and that's the nice thing about it. Other teams in our league, other teams around the country, even the best teams in the country. You watch, 4 teams are in the Final Four. You watch when it's over. There'll still be guys transferring out. So it's something that is here, and it's something that we're going to take advantage of. We're going to work really hard for those guys that want to remain a Cougar to be a Cougar, not running anybody off. They're here with open arms. They have championship experience. But I only am going to take guys back here that want to be here. And when they're here, they're all in.
Going off that, have you spoken with any of the guys that have gotten in the portal and have not chosen another destination?
Well, I've been here for less than 24 hours, so I had the opportunity. I didn't want to call guys before today, but I had the opportunity to meet with the team last night. I'm going to be meeting with everybody individually here over the next day, so I'll get a greater feel, for what their needs are, concerns, wants, and then who I am, and if that's a good fit. And once we find out those answers, then I'll probably have a better feel for, okay, what are we starting with? And I feel good about it that we'll be able to keep a few guys that want to remain Cougars.
Coach, you talked about being out of the game for the last couple of years. The sport's changed a lot in that time with the transfer portal and the NIL money and all that. How ready are you for the differences from what things were when you left?
Yeah, I think that's a funny question because, not to dismiss it, but I don't think it's rocket science. Like NIL, guys want to make more money. So does everybody in every industry, right? And that gives you the opportunity. I was on the beginning stages of NIL. I don't think anybody in the country at the time knew what it was going to be, what it was going to look like. There are teams and programs that still don't know. Transfers, obviously there are a lot more than ever before, but some of the teams that we built at Xavier, some of the teams that we built at Louisville, I don't want to say we're transfer heavy, that would be wrong, but they were key transfers. My first team at Louisville, we lost from the previous season 4 starters off an NIT team. In my first year at Louisville, we replaced those guys with 3 transfers, 2 of which were my starting backcourt. So having been a transfer myself 100 years ago as a player, you want to get it right the next time around. And so I'm confident that we'll be able to get the right pieces. But I don't think the game has changed an awful lot. What's changed maybe is your ability or the time frame that you get to really foster that chemistry needed to compete for championships.
Chris, at some point, did the competitive juices just see that you were a Planet Fitness dad, a volleyball dad, whatever you were doing?
I wasn't a Planet Fitness dad.
You were a Planet
I
Fitness
said most of the
dad.
people in Venice, Florida are about 91 years old, so I was more a Planet Fitness grandson.
There you go. Okay, you were setting off the alarm there, but
Yeah.
At some point during that 2.5 years, was there a point where you're like, man, these competitive juices are hitting me? Were you on the treadmill and seeing a game and going, I got to get out there and do
Yeah,
this thing?
I would say for the first year and a half, I just wanted to get away and spend time with my family because you lose so much of that time when you're invested in your program, when you're recruiting, when you're traveling, when you're just a part of a program. And so it was a great break for me. But, this last year, I spent a lot of time doing work behind the scenes, visiting several programs around the country, spending time with Kelvin Sampson at Houston, Bob Ritchie at Furman. I was at Lipscomb. I was a lot of different places. Met with NIL agents to just get a lay of the land in terms of that landscape. But the competitive juices and watching games, that's never left. But it was a great break for me, especially in the first year and a half, just to be a dad and a husband. But I couldn't be more fired up to get back into this thing.
Chris Andrew from the Post-Courier. Did you get other offers for other programs during that time that you were out? And then what about the college made you decide?
Yeah, the first year and a half, I got a lot of offers. I wasn't ready to jump back in. I told my agent at the time that I don't even mention which schools. And then, this past recruiting cycle or job cycle, if you will, I interviewed with certain ones. But ultimately, I had to be at the right fit. I think maybe from an outsider's perspective, people would think, bless you, bud. Pollen getting you, isn't it? Yeah. I think the Power 5 is great, don't get me wrong. But I've been in a lot of arenas, fortunately visiting arenas, where it didn't look like Power 5 investment. It didn't look like Power 5 pageantry, and that's not what Charleston's about, and so I wanted to be at a place that had heart, that had a commitment to basketball, and, he showed that, and obviously I've been a fan because I've known Pat forever, so I'm watching all his games, and so for me, that's why it was right. It wasn't about a brand name and, the highest level, if you will. I wanted a place that invested in winning and has a great place to raise a family. That's why I'm here.
We're going to see 33s a game from your teams?
We're going to space the floor, and it's incumbent upon our staff to get guys that can shoot it. Again, if we can get open threes, I want the ball going up. I definitely want to put pressure on the rim because that constricts the defense and allows those open threes to happen. But we don't want to put on the brakes and start playing 50 to 45 basketball by any means. I want those guys to feel freedom, and I talked to them a lot about confidence last night. To me, that's the difference a lot of times between good players and great players is what's between their ears and how confident are they.
You mentioned staff. You already have an idea of guys that you'll kind of hope to bring in on your staff?
I do, and that'll be rolled out here in the next week or two. I want to give each of those guys like their own day, so to speak. But I'm really confident that we're going to have one of the best staffs in the country, not just the CAA.
And then you mentioned the 3 things
Yeah, so I think that like every good player, and I was talking more individual players, not necessarily philosophy, like the first thing that I noticed about guys like a Jordan Wara, who I coached, who's with the Raptors now, or Trayvon Blewett, was they were hungry to learn. You know, they didn't have all the answers. You know, they were hungry to learn. And that sort of goes hand in hand with the next thing I talked about, and that is, you know, how coachable are you in the tough moments? You know, it's one thing for a coach to ride a team at halftime or after a game when disappointed in our play. If that message isn't echoed by your best players, if they can't be coachable when things are the most challenging, you're going to have a hard time winning. You know, and then the final part is like, how invested are they in the self-improvement? You know, how much does that matter? You know, the process of it. And so you know, each of those guys that I mentioned, and I could go on, because not everybody's going to be your first-team all-conference guy. But we've had a guy like a James Farr at Xavier that probably in today's day and age would have transferred after his sophomore year, playing 7 minutes a game. And he's second in the Big East in rebounding when he's a senior. And so James was committed to improving. You know, whether that's improving your body, improving your range, improving your mental outlook, your toughness, you know, all that stuff goes into being a great player. So that's just sort of my analysis when I see guys that, you know, have risen through their career. It's usually those are three good indicators.
Coach.
Hold on.
Charleston.
Thank you. You got a question, buddy?
What did you start your base off of basketball?
What's that?
What did you start your base off of basketball?
What did I start my base off of basketball? What do you mean by that?
Base
What
hours?
did you start at?
I don't know.
Can we expect to see yourself on the sidelines like we did with Johnny?
I don't know. Like he's done a lot of basketball, but he's more of a football player, and so we're gonna have to find him an organization here in town to play some football. But he likes basketball. He likes to play all different sports.
Coach, welcome down.
Hey, thanks, guys. Thank you.
Matt, you got a second?